The next topic we are going to cover is domain class and GORM part 3. Two major topics we are going to cover in this presentation include database migration and how to use MongoDB as a database server underneath GORM. So let's talk about database migration first. What are the issues of database schema changes? If you've worked on any enterprise application, you may find database schemas keep changing along with the application that use them. Database schemas probably don't change as often as the application code itself. However, it keeps changing nonetheless. For example, after you release your production application, your customers might want to add email field to your customer domain class, and that translated into adding email column to customer table. Now, what are the issues of this kind of database schema changes? The first, how do you version control schema changes along with change in your application? How do you go back to previous version of the schema? I mean, you've been working on latest version of the application, but your customer has some issues with the previous version that he or she is using. So in that case, you probably have to go back to previous version of the application, which means that application should have used the corresponding version of the schema. How do people work with the different versions of the schema? So you might in fact have to work on different version of the application, which means you have to work on different versions of the schema. How do you convey schema changes to other developers and the production server? For example, what you want to do is you want to actually have application have a complete schema change information along with the package itself, so that when the receiver, whether that receiver is the another developer or deployer, should be able to pick and choose the corresponding version of the schema with the corresponding version of the application. So these are the issues that you might have to face with the database schema changes along with the application changes. So migration is the solution to these problems. So migrations can manage the evolution of database schema. So with migrations, you can describe schema changes in self-contained Groovy classes in this case, and they are called migration files or changelog files. So you can think of them as migration DSL, domain-specific language. So you can actually specify what change has been made to the table between version 5 to version 6. You can check these migration files because they are genuine Groovy files into version control system. So the schema can be in sync with the code. And migration files are part of the application structure. So when a developer can check out the code, the developer should have corresponding migration files, which means that migration files reflect corresponding database schema. And you and other developers can choose schema version of choice, for example, several versions back from the current one. So what is and why database migration plugin? So migration is the solution to this database schema. So different web application frameworks such as Grails and Rails have provided plugins for providing these migration features. So Grails database migration plugin is the Grails plugin that handles this migration of schemas, and it will help avoid inconsistencies between applications and schemas and communication issues because the schema is part of the application version control. Again, when a developer check out the particular version, that version should have a corresponding matching code and matching schemas. And provides various commands for managing migration. So in the hands-on lab, you're going to use dbm commands for managing the migration of the schemas. Migration plugin is installed as a default to every Grails application. So let's actually go through some dbm commands, migration commands that you can use. So there are two options for creating initial changelog file. The result are the same. So changelog file and migration file, you can think of them the same thing. So option 1 is creating initial changelog file from domain class, and option 2 is creating initial changelog file from existing database. So commands that you can use, the command you can use for creating domain classes is dbm generate GORM changelog. While creating initial changelog from existing databases is dbm generate changelog without the GORM here. So once initial changelog files has been created, then you have to let Grails know domain classes and databases are in sync. So you can actually call Grails dbm changelog sync. Actually, I found this particular command was not really working well for me, so I had to use dbm update. And in the hands-on lab, I'll actually explain that. So after you change now, so after initial database schema as well as domain classes. Now, suppose you made a change your domain class. You might have added a few new fields, and that new fields needs to be reflected as new columns in the database tables. So what you're going to do at that point is you're going to actually create a changelog file. So you're going to use dbm gorm diff, and then you provide the name of the file that captures the difference between previous version and the current version of your domain class, and -add means you want to add this new diff file to the initial changelog file. After changelog is updated, then you can update the database. So this is the command that actually create new columns in the database. Okay. Or another option is you can set Grails plugin database migration.update onStart to true, and so in this case it will. Okay, so how to do rollback. So you can roll back recent changes. You can say dbm rollback count, and you specify number of recent changes that you want to roll back. And after changelog is updated, then you can update a database again using dbm update. All right, so let's start our first exercise, database migration. So we are going to, by the way, so these are the known problems that actually I personally found, and I thought I documented this. So after initial sync, after initial domain class and database are working, you should be able to use dbm changelog sync, but somehow I couldn't actually get it to work. So I had to use dbm update even for initial sync. And the diff changelog file that was generated somehow incorrectly contains drop columns for all properties. Obviously, that is incorrect, so I have to actually remove them. And even if domain class added a new field with a nullable true, so somehow the generated change set does not reflect it, so I had to manually add it to the changes set. And dbm rollback count does not seem to work. And also you have to run the application in order to see dbm commands. So before you run the application, looks like the plugins are not really installed. So I have to run the application to see dbm commands from database migration. Okay, so let's try to create a brand new application called migration file, which I've done that right here. So I created migration app. And then we are going to go to the migration app, and then we are going to generate the domain class. So I'm gonna use create domain class, from JPassion.student, and then we are going to add name and age to student domain class. So you can load this using Eclipse IDE, but since we're actually executing some commands, dbm commands, so we're actually building these things at the command line. Okay, so we are going to student, and we are going to add these two new fields. Okay, and we save the change, and we are going to create a controller for student. And we're going to do dynamic scaffolding. So scaffold true. Oops. Scaffold. Okay. Save the change. And now we're going to run the application. So what I found is that at this point, you are not going to actually see the DBM commands because somehow the plugins are not installed until you run the application. So let me actually show you whether it does have a DBM commands here or not. So if I say, so right now you don't see any DBM commands, so you have to run the application. And in fact, if you do list plugins, and no plugins actually installed at this point, so that's the reason you have to run the application to get the database plugin to be installed. Okay, so let me show you. At the end, it should actually display all the plugins that have been, yeah, so you can see, there is nothing, you do not have any plugins installed. Okay, so we have to actually run the application first. So run app. And we are going to add a couple of students. I'm going to add Sang Shin and Yoman. And then we're going to actually change the data source Groovy file. Looks like somebody's already running the application. So let me make sure nobody's actually running the application. Okay, I'm going to just stop here. Okay, so let me run the application again. Okay, so we're going to actually create the couple of students. By the way, now if you actually see the commands, let me just quit, and let's actually run the, oh, why did I actually quit it? Okay, so I have to actually run the run app. So once we are running, we want to actually create a couple of students first. Okay, so I'm going to use this one. Okay, so I'm going to go to student, and let's create the new student. Sang Shin 11 student, and create the another student, and 22. Okay, so now we want to actually stop the application because we want to actually execute some the DBM commands. Okay, so before we do that, we have to actually change the data source configuration file. First of all, you have to comment out this db create because we want to create the database tables ourselves rather than through Grails automatic database creation. So we're going to comment out all this db create. We're going to mostly work on development. So only thing you have to change is actually this. Okay, so let's actually change that. We go to conf and data source, and I'm gonna just change these two. Okay, and save the change. Okay, now we are going to run this dbm generate GORM changelog Groovy file. Okay, so we are going to now generate the first migration file or first changelog file. Okay, so let me just copy it and let's run it. And it should actually create the changelog Groovy file. Okay, so let's see if you go to Grails. I'm gonna just use this one. You see there is actually migration directory, and underneath now we see changelog file. So in this changelog file, you can see there are two change set. One is create table with these 4 columns. ID and version, age, and name, and another change set for making name as creating index for name column. Okay. All right. So we just take a look at this changelog file that was created. Now at this point, you should be able to actually see what changes need to be applied. So we can actually call dbm. You can use the dbm status. Okay. So yes, so this is what I meant. You know, at this point, you should be able to actually use dbm this command, dbm changelog sync, but somehow I couldn't actually get it to work. So I'm gonna use, even at the beginning, I'm gonna actually use the dbm update. Okay. Now, so dbm status actually lets you know what changes have been. What change set have been created, but it will tell you whether those change set have been applied or not. Okay, so we'll say Grails and dbm status. So it will tell us there are 2 change sets that are not applied yet. Okay, meaning table has not been created yet with those 4 columns. So we are going to run Grails dbm update, and that's the time table with those 4 columns will be created. Okay. All right. Now we're gonna actually finally update. Just so you can see 2 change sets have not been applied. Okay, to this database. So now we are gonna apply them. So we say dbm update. Okay. So we are updating table, meaning we are executing those 2 change sets. And then we'll do dbm status again to make sure there is no change set still need to be applied. Okay, so they seem to be finished. It seems to be finished. So I'm going to say again dbm status. Okay. And there should not be any change set that need to be applied because they have been just being applied. Okay, yeah, so there is nothing to be applied. All right, so now we are going to modify the domain class, and then we'll generate the diff changelog file. So we are going to add another field to student domain class. So let's go to student, student domain class, and we are going to add string school. And now let's actually see the school nullable true, because we have 2 students that have been already created. Okay, so those 2 students will not have the school field set. Okay, so we need to set this school as nullable true. Okay, so we save the change. Now we are going to generate the difference changelog file using dbm GORM diff. Okay, so the difference will be captured into this file, changelog2.groovy file. And then we say dash add, and this dash add will, by having this dash add, you're basically indicating that you want this changelog2 groovy file to be included to the first changelog file. Okay, so we'll see that example in a few seconds. So let's actually run this Grails dbm GORM diff and changelog. Okay. And now if you actually see migration file, we should see changelog2 file as well. Okay, so we see changelog2 files. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. Somehow I'm actually seeing these drop columns. So this is not correct. So I have to actually remove it. Okay, so I'm going to just comment this out. And another thing I had to change was, even though I said a school supposed to be nullable true, it doesn't actually add this constraint for table. Okay, so I had to actually add this constraint myself. Okay, so I'm going to add this constraint to this school column. Okay, all right, so I save this change. And you also actually take a look at the initial changelog file. You can see it now included the changelog2 groovy file. Okay, so this is what I meant by having minus add, dash add option here. Okay. All right, so now let's see. Let's actually say this time I'm gonna actually using interactive shell because I don't want to actually run Grails every time I need to run Grails command. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna say dbm status, and it should say one change set have not been applied. Okay, because we just created changelog2.groovy file, which reflects the difference that need to be applied. Okay, so one change set have not been applied. Okay, so we need to apply. So we're gonna say dbm update, and now that change set will be applied. Okay, all right. So now at this point, if you say dbm status, it will tell you that there is no change set to be applied. Okay, so now we are going to run the application again. So let's run the application. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to actually, create a new student. Okay, so let's go to student list, and we should actually, oops, oh, looks like we lost those two students. The reason is because we restarted the application. Okay. So basically, if we actually created those two new students after we actually initialized the initial change. So this time let's just actually see a new student. So you can see now we have a school field is actually being deployed. Okay, so I can say Sang and age 11 and school whatever, and create, and and the student list. Okay, all right. So if you have actually created the students, after we actually create the change log, then what should happen is something like this. Okay, so we have two students who do not have anything, any information on school. That this is a new student that I create. Okay, and you can actually verify the table, and table here, these old students don't have any information, any data on school columns, yet the third student has the school information. Okay, And you can also take a look at the database changelog file, okay? And you can see these are the changelog, the data that have been actually created, okay? All right, so that's the end of the exercise 1. So the next exercise is using GORM and MongoDB, okay? So what is MongoDB? So MongoDB is the most popular open source document database, and it's a leading NoSQL database. So it basically bridges the gap between the key value stores, which is fast and highly scalable, and that's the characteristic of NoSQL, and traditional the relational database. Okay, so traditional relational database provides rich queries and deep functionality. So in terms of functionality, it provides document-oriented storage. Okay, so documents are in fact stored in the form of JSON with dynamic schemas, and with dynamic schemas offer simplicity and power. So unlike relational database, you don't have to have a schema in MongoDB. So they get, in fact, generate dynamically, so to speak. It does provide a full index support. You can have index on any attribute for fast performance, and replication and high availability. So it could mirror across LANs and wide area networks for scale and fault tolerance. It provides pretty rich document-based queries, and it can support the map reduce for flexible aggregation and data processing. So MongoDB plugin is available. So basically it lets you use the same GORM APIs like a save and all the queries on the top of MongoDB. So in fact, the GORM originally it was actually tied up with the Hibernate, but recent GORM layer is actually revised so that it has independence from the underlying database technology. Okay. So simple persistent methods such as the save, the list, all those things should work. Okay, and dynamic finders, criteria queries, named queries, query by example should work fine. Inheritance and embedded types, those are all supported. The features that are not supported include HQL queries cannot be done, dirty checking is not supported, and composite primary key is not supported. These many-to-many associations we talked about are not supported, and any direct interaction with the Hibernate APIs are not supported, obviously. All right, so let's do exercise 2. So basically, what we're going to do is, we're going to use the same pet clinic sample application, but we are going to use MongoDB underneath. Okay, so we are not gonna change any code in Pet Clinic, or then of course you have to actually, install the plugin. That's pretty much it. You don't have to change actually any code in the business logic. Okay, so let's start the MongoDB database first. First of all, you have to create a database. So we have to create data, and we are gonna create and data DB. Okay, and then we're gonna start the MongoDB. MongoD. I assume that you guys actually have downloaded the MongoDB already. I should actually document it as the step 0, okay? So I'm going to start the MongoD. Oops. MongoD. Okay, so I probably have to go, this directory. I think I didn't have this pin in my path, so I'm going to just go over there. Okay, and MongoD. Okay, so MongoD is now getting started. Okay, all right. So if you have a problem, MongoD -- repair. So I don't have that problem, so I'm going to move on. Now I am going to configure MongoDB plugin to my Pet Clinic application. So I'm going to actually go to the build config. So this is build config, and since I'm not using Hibernate, okay, I'm going to comment out this Hibernate plugin, and instead I'm going to add this MongoDB plugin at the end, right here. Okay, save the change. Okay, and now I'm gonna run the application. Okay, so you can see I didn't change any code. So let me stop the application and then we run the application. And then we're going to actually display veterinarians. Okay, and we can add owner and like this. We can change the specialties. We can actually perform a few database operations, and all those things should work fine over MongoDB. Okay, and we'll actually verify later on MongoDB table. Okay, all right, so yeah, this is MongoDB. I don't need to see this one. Okay, so you can see it's actually installing MongoDB plugin. So once you have done some operations, what you're going to do is we are going to, yeah, so this is almost done. So maybe I should wait. Yeah, so once you have performed some database operations, we are going to actually verify. Yeah, here we go. So we're going to actually go here, Pet Clinic. Okay. So let's see whether we can see all the veterinarians. Okay, cool. And we can add the new owner. So I'm going to go to find owner and add owner. And first name Sang. Okay, so all that information is there. So I'm going to add owner. Okay, so I have the added owner. Okay, and so let's see. What we can do at this point is I can actually go to Mongo. I'm going to actually open another window, and I go to this bin directory of Mongo. Okay, so I'm going to say Mongo. Okay, and then you can do some help to find out what commands you can specify. Okay, I'm going to actually see what database we have. We should actually see pet clinic database. Okay, so show DBs. Yeah, so I see pet clinic database right here. So we are going to use a pet clinic database for query operation or whatever operations right now. Okay, switch to pet clinic. And so in MongoDB, a database is a set of collections. So we can say, so you can think of collections as like a table in relational database. So I say show collections. So you can see I have a person collection and pet type collection, specialty collection, and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to perform some find operations. So I say db find, db person find, and I should be able to find all the persons that have been created. Okay, so you can see James, Helen, and Sang Shin here as well. Okay, all right. Now what we can do at this point is db pet type find. So we're going to see. So all the pet type is also found, okay, and we can exit. So you can verify things worked fine as expected. Okay, so key point is that the most of the query operations, most of the GORM APIs, they are actually working as expected without any change. Okay, so we can actually perform some query operations. So we can actually add some code. So this is to verify the query operation is working as expected. So clinic, we'll go to clinic controller, and we will just yeah. So we have these queries already. So let me see whether we have let's query. Yeah. So I'm gonna just add it. If it is actually conflict, then we'll find out. Okay. Add. Looks like we already have it. Okay. Where's this? Let me just make sure that I haven't actually added anything. Just remove all this. Okay, so we'll just add here. Okay, and save the change. And we're gonna actually go to this query operation, and it worked as expected. Okay. All right. Now, if you okay, so join query. So if I try to this, you'll actually see join queries is not supported. Okay. Yeah. So you can see some limitations. So that is basically association. Yeah, this one doesn't get supported. Okay. All right. So that is the end of this exercise. So let me make sure that we